We are approaching the end of the year and we know what that means. Normally, you're now sitting there and think of what is your New Year's resolution. And we're talking about why New Year's resolutions do not work. I hope you had a great Christmas time, and we're now looking at the end of this year. And of course, many people now wonder, what's coming up next year? What are my goals? What are my personal goals? What are my business or career goals? And we will talk about why it is very important to choose carefully what you do now at the end of this probably very important year, and also another very special year for many due to the situation in which we all live in. By the way, many people now will think about personal goals, how to have a more fulfilled life, etc., etc. Just yesterday, we published an excellent interview with M. Stroud, Lessons from a Clown, Find Courage, Stand Up for Yourself, Have Fun Doing It. That is a very important podcast if you plan to change something next year. Probably your hashtag motivation 2022 moment. I highly recommend listening to that podcast, which I just published yesterday. But now we have to talk about why New Year's resolutions do not work. I'll give you an example. We will now set your goals, and these goals come to effect at a very important date. Very important date. 1st of February 2022. And now you probably will say, that is pretty random, isn't it? Because why should I do it on why shouldn't I do it on January 1st? That's New Year's Eve. Well, on 1st of February, it's Chinese New Year. So that's the new year for 1.4 billion people. So when you look into whole Europe, or the United States of America, including Canada, more people have a different New Year than we have. Our calendar is based on an agreement, which also a pretty debatable history when you look at it. And the calendar is as arbitrary as any other calendar is, and many cultures have different calendars, so please don't think ours is the special one. That is just nothing else than white privilege, and we are not going down that road, at least not when you're reasonable. So we now have to look at what are the options we have, because many people want to have something at the end of this year. So don't use anything which is arbitrary, and also don't stick to, and that's the second part of the problem, don't stick to anything which is based in the category of, oh, it has to feel hard. I can already tell you that from January 1st until probably January 12th, 14th, 15th, the gyms will be crammed with people who want to change their lives. And probably after about 2 weeks, they realize, oh, that's not really for me. And then they stay home, and they always will have a good reason, a lot to do, either with a family, with your business, with your employment. Something will always be in between you and going to the gym. And there's nothing bad about that. And by the way, I don't hold against gyms that they market this point of view to sell memberships. Because even if you go to a gym for only 2 weeks, you enter a gym membership, and then you get a professional introduction by a health professional when it's a good gym. And no one ever left a gym less healthy compared to how they entered it. So I'm not holding against gyms that they probably sold you an annual membership and you're only there for 2 weeks. That's your decision. They try to give you something good. And also, just to make that sure, because some people might think I'm now a stakeholder in some gym. I am not, obviously. So stop to go for these, it has to feel hard, and you think that it is better because it feels hard. People will start to get up 4 a.m., 5 a.m. in the morning, work 16, 18, 20 hours a day, work 7 days a week, because they think that is what success is all about. Of course, success is hard work. Still, it is not based on random numbers like at that point of the day you have to get up, or at that point of the day you have to go to bed, or that these are the days you have to work per week. That is just another arbitrary category. When it feels hard, you think you outperform others who do not do the same as you do. It can't be further away from scientific evidence than going down the work hard by getting up at 4 a.m. rule. Which is, by the way, when some people, and you will see it on social media, when people post at the beginning of the year, hashtag 5 a.m. club, yeah, good luck with that. You can do that. I got up very early because I grew up in a very small village and the school was quite far away. And when I went to high school and even to higher education, that was even further away. So I had to get up 4:35 a.m. in the morning. It wasn't pleasant, and I was very happy when I lived closer to where I had my education then. The third aspect of the problem is wishes are not a sustainable approach for success or for anything to be better in your life. Wishing something doesn't work. It's not that you have Aladdin's lamp and you rub it and there's a genie coming out giving you wishes. This is not how it works. So how to do better? That is the main question now, how to do better. So step number 1, look at what is really driving you. And then please look at what really drives you, how many of your weekly activities are connected to what you like to do, and how many of your weekly activities are something which you do not like to do. And let's get it straight, there will always be activities which we do not like. In the UK, end of January, I don't know a single person sitting down and say, yay, tax returns, finally, I was looking forward to that for the whole year. No one says that. At least no one I do. At least no one I know. Maybe your accountant says that because they get paid for doing them. However, you now have to see what do you do for yourself and how much share of your life do you give away where someone else takes control of your life? Where someone tells you, you have to go there, you have to be there, or you have to do X, Y, Z because I tell you to do so. The more control from other people you have in your life, the more unhappy you will be as a general rule of thumb. And now it's time to check how much of your life, how much of your weekly time, monthly time, daily time, annual time is taken away by others, and how much of the time is something you really enjoy and where you are in control and can say, I like to do what I do here right now. If you now identify quite a number of instances where you say, no, we are not where we should be, then it's time for a change. And now there is a tool which many people use when it comes to change and setting goals. And there are positive and negative aspects about it, and I will get to that in 1 minute. So many heard of SMART goals. You probably heard a goal must be at every letter stands for a certain word. S is for specific, M is for measurable, A is for attractive or absolute, is whatever you want to take. R is for realistic, and T is time bound. And that is a good moment to start from. And using SMART goals works. However, in my opinion, and also according to quite reasonably new studies, so we have to wait a bit more to see a bit more in that field, many people who took part in these studies said SMART goals work, but they kept us away from excellence. We could have performed a bit better or even much better without SMART goals. Why is that? I just give you an example. Let's say you set a yearly goal. At the end of next year, you want to achieve X, Y, Z, and there are 50 steps you have to do to achieve that goal. At the end of February, you complete 42 steps out of 50 successfully. That is the moment where you realize you could probably achieve 200 of your goals. But what will happen in most cases, and that is called the elasticity of work, you will suddenly need 8 months for the last 8 goals because the amount of work adopts to the time frame available. So SMART goals are good to have a starting point and a certain plan in mind and written down. By the way, if someone tells you that you achieve more goals when you write them down and they refer to the class, often then they give you some random number. That study never existed. It's a myth. It's widely spread in the motivational industry. That never existed. There's no scientific evidence that when you write something down, you achieve more goals. When you write something down, you have everything well documented. And probably when you think you forgot something, it's good to look into it, that you haven't forgotten anything. But writing down might be good to organize and structure your approach. That definitely is proven, but just writing it down doesn't get stuff done. Documentation in many organizations already is mandatory, so you have to do it anyway. Or the regulatory compliance just expects you to do it. When you now set your goals, always be aware of the number one factor. Your physical and your mental health cannot be replaced, because many people then, when they now try to get into action, go on Google and run into scams which are all over the place. Success mentors, 10 times here, 20 times here, 5 times more income, 50 times more revenue, 5x, 10x, 15x, 20x, 200x. Always you achieve so much more. And then you see events where hundreds, sometimes thousands of people sit together in an arena paying $5, $10, $18, $20, $28, $30,000 for, meet your destiny, meet your inner child, meet the goal you always wanted to achieve, blah, blah, blah. It's all chumbawamba. And we have massive pressure, especially on young people. What is considered success? So first, success is something which is deeply personal. You define your personal success. No one else does. Especially at the moment, there's a huge amount of pressure that suddenly anyone has to be an entrepreneur and own their own business and be their own boss, blah, blah, blah. I know countless people from my circumstances who have a brilliant life, a job they love, and an excellent and very safe income, including a record pension, so a very healthy and wealthy life for the future with many benefits given to them by their employer in an employment situation. I have no idea who decided that suddenly self-employment is like first class and anything else being employed is like second class or tourist class. And when you actually work for the state, it's even a bit less because you're employed by the state. That's just nonsense. It's plain, straightforward nonsense. And there are many people out there who simply try to sell you these large-scale events, and none of these events work. I just give you a very simple example. When you want to learn the guitar, and there are three options. Number one is a one-to-one coaching with a very good mentor or coach, excellent musician, had a career, offers one-to-one training. Option number two is the same coach offers that in a situation with 12 people. It's a bit cheaper and you share the same coach, mentor, the same musician, and then you share it with 12 people. Option number three is the same musician, maybe Eric Clapton, is standing in front of you in a concert hall, and with 5,000 other people, you watch him playing the guitar. Where do you learn the most? Immediately you know one-to-one situation is the best. Not always it's possible for anyone because it's quite an expensive choice, and then you go into a smaller group which is still dedicated to a certain topic. When you want to go to a concert, you can do that. It's fun, it's enjoyment, you can hang out with friends, have a good time, and you will have great memories. However, you didn't learn anything there. So don't think that when you go to these large halls, singing, dancing, clapping, motivational, inspirational, pseudo-education and pseudo-science events, and many of them are straightforward, unscientific. You won't learn anything there. You get a leaflet, you fill in your goals, you write them down, and then someone gets on stage, breaks out crying because they're so happy, and then they have a personal breakthrough, blah, blah, blah. They just take the money off you. These people are pathetic. So please don't join the desperate market. People who are desperate for success but will never make it simply due to bad choices. And by the way, when at the beginning of the year, a friend you haven't heard for a very long time from suddenly contacts you and says, I have an amazing opportunity for you and you should join some network marketing MLM scheme where they tell you, oh, you just get 5 people in and then they get 5 people in and you get a share from all these people's sales. I'm still astonished that people don't look behind that. Many speakers love to work for networking companies or MLM schemes just for one reason, because they know these events are based on having speakers there and they get paid for it. They don't invest in this by themselves. So, and of course, these places, when you see you are at the top and then you recruit 5 people and every one of these 5 recruits another 5. And when you see that org chart, it looks like a pyramid, probably because it's a pyramid scheme or a Ponzi scheme or both. And of course, they don't like to hear that. So walk away from these. There is never an easy solution to a complex problem. When you now wonder, how can I see that I make the right choice? So just in my opinion, there are 3 main pillars you should look for when you invest in your education. So number 1, is it proper knowledge, which means it has its foundation in science. It doesn't mean that the instructor needs a scientific degree. They can also get the knowledge without the degree. It's publicly available. That's called science. But it is complicated and it is complex and it takes a while to learn. And of course, when people have certain proofs, it gives you the safety and security that they know what they are doing. Excellent knowledge, proper knowledge is always based on science. When someone says do X, Y, Z, and you question, where does this idea come from? What is the proof for that? They must have a good answer. And the answer is a study, proof, evidence, effect, something you can check, where you see this is something where a proof is available. It could be falsified. People tried to falsify it, but they failed because the proof and the evidence is unambiguously in favor of the fact. So step 1, proper knowledge. Step number 2, you need people with proper experience. So for example, when you say, and that is a common request I receive, people say, I need to be a better presenter because I need to sell to clients. and I have no experience in sales, and I have little experience in presentation, so how can we get this together? It's a classic request for a presentation training focused on sales. Don't work with anyone who has not worked in sales. You have many actors, they are good on stage, and then you think because they are good on stage and they can convince an audience of a certain role, they could teach you how to present and do sales, and they can't. Because these people never were in a situation where you work in a probably company structure or even a corporate structure where they give you monthly goals, weekly goals, quarterly goals, annual goals, and you have to meet these goals with a certain number of calls, certain number of prospects turned into meetings, certain number of meetings with tailored presentation, and then put a proposal out there and use questioning and closing techniques to get the deal signed. When you don't have that experience, you cannot teach others how to do it. I went through a very hard American school. I worked in Europe and all over the world with an educator that is very strict and very tough on sales goals. And when you didn't meet the criteria and when you didn't meet numbers, you were out quicker than you can say the word out. But I learned a lot. And this is why I'm able to do sales in different companies, different situations. I worked and sold to people. And selling does not mean scamming people or talking them into something or selling nonsense to them they don't need. That's not sales. That's scamming or scheming. Sales is that you have an excellent product with excellent knowledge, and then you have to present it the way that people who are not knowledgeable about the product have to see what the advantage of your product is over the products that other people offer. So step number 1, proper knowledge. Step number 2, proper experience. You need people who've been there, done that. And then step number 3, you must have a proper anchoring, an anchor which is set in your brain that people know. I didn't only listen to it, I remember what was said. Of course, when you have a seminar or workshop or whatever of 2 or 3 days, some things you forget. This is why writing down is important in these cases. But you sometimes have people, they have excellent scientific knowledge and they have the experience, but and then here comes the problem, they can't get a phrase together. They are incredibly boring. They only read out slides. They can only read from the script. They are unable because they have no qualification or no idea what rhetorics mean or methodology or didactics or anything of what you need to do proper delivery of knowledge. Just because you know something does not mean that you can explain it to anyone. And maybe you remember moments at school or when you had your vocational training or went to college, high school, university, wherever you went to, where you had people in front of you and thought, they are brilliant, but I don't get what they're talking about. I just don't get it. And that's, in these cases, not your fault. You need people who are qualified to do that because these are the only people who can properly help you. So proper knowledge, proper experience, and proper anchoring, which means you must have a foundation in science, it must be practice-oriented, and it must be with an entertaining delivery, because otherwise you can't sit through 2 days of boring stuff, even if you try to. It's just impossible. Very important now, and I, again, can only highly recommend listening to the podcast of M. Stroud yesterday, where we talked about how to find courage, stand up for yourself, and have fun doing it. #motivation 2022, if you want to call it like that. Listen to her podcast. We do less interviews next year. I will do more episodes of what I do here because that was the feedback which I received. When you want to have more than the podcast, as usual, go to expert.nb-networks.com. And if you're now thinking, maybe in my organization or my company, or maybe just for myself, I need a trainer or we need a speaker for an event, or you say we need coaching, consulting, mentoring, or maybe for a long term you need project or an interim manager, or you just say, hey, I just want to have a chat or exchange thoughts, pick your brains and have a talk from there, feel free to email me, nb@nb-networks.com, nb@nb-networks.com, and then we take it from there, always happy to help. And now the most important part is that you apply what you heard in this podcast. Because only when you apply the knowledge you get, you will see the change in your company, your organization, your corporation, or maybe even your personal life. The change that you desperately want to have will only happen when you apply the knowledge. So I hope you will be able to do so soon. The year 2021 is now coming to an end. I am very thankful for your support and the countless listeners we have here. We are now very close. Just last week, we again hit top 100 with the podcast, which I never expected. We are now very close to another big number, which will be announced probably on social media. I think even in the probably end of January, we are going to hit that number, and you will see it on social media then. This all went above and beyond anything I could ever have imagined. So thank you very much for your support. It's great to have you here every week and great discussions, even when we sometimes disagree. I thank you very much for the very constructive criticism. And now I wish you all the best. I wish you all the best applying what you learned here or heard here in your organization, because that is what is truly going to change your situation and your life in a positive way. And if you need help, I'm always happy to have a chat with you. I now hope that you had a great Christmas time, and I hope you will have a happy and very fulfilling New Year and an amazing New Year's Eve, no matter where you are, no matter where you're listening now. Just keep up the good mood in which you hopefully are right now, and if not, it is time to start the change, because as soon as you take action, that is the guarantee that something is going to change in a hopefully and most likely positive way. I wish you all the best implementing what you learned here in your life, your organization. And at the end of this podcast, there is, as usual, only one thing for me left to say. Thank you very much for your time.